Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Hey, well, thank you, Sean, and we are here. Well, first of all, this is Mitch, and I am here at the Conscript Human Wave Advanced Squad Leader Tournament in Tysons, Virginia. I'm here with the guy that's running this, Dave Garvin. Hey,
Hi.
Dave.
Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Dave is from Canada, so he's very nice. And we're sitting here in the middle of the tournament drinking some Dalmore whiskey.
12-year-old single malt, of course.
It's not bad. And we're here to talk a little bit about ASL and talk about this event. So we've covered ASL before. We did a Winter Offensive a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And the guys, Perry, they were awesome. But it seems like ASL still madly popular.
It is. This tournament, this is the second tournament of an annual tournament. We held it last year. We had maybe 30, 32 people.
Is that why it's annual? Because you hold it every year?
Because we hold it every year, but it's only the second annual tournament of this one. And to talk about tournaments in general, throughout the United States, you will find a major tournament about once every month somewhere. I say major, that could be anywhere from 15 to 50 people that show up from across the country. For example, here we have people from as far south as North Carolina and as far north as northern New Jersey that drove down here just to play a board game.
So let's talk about ASL. So ASL's been around since the 70s, and I remember when Squad Leader first came out from Avalon Hill. And a lot of people think, well, it's the same game. No, this is Advanced Squad Leader,
Yes.
which is a lot different. And Advanced Squad Leader is also morphed into Advanced Squad Leader, and then for guys like me, Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit,
Yes.
which has just come out with the 4th edition, which features the Japanese.
That's right.
So like, for the guys that normally listen to this, we're talking hardcore miniature grogs. Why should they be playing this game? Because you used to play Flames of War and Team Yankee, and
Oh, that's right. And first of all, about the miniatures games, it has a different experience. The miniatures games I found were really engaging, engrossing, and entertaining. I think the one aspect that Advanced Squad Leader may have for some people that did not found in other games is the historical aspect behind it. So maybe not known to your listeners, but for Advanced Squad Leader, what you do is you play a scenario, and every scenario is based on an historical event. And the best scenario designers will go to the nth degree and even cite their work to show where they researched to come up with this. And they'll try to replicate the experience of that battle, not the actual effect.
so you bring this up, and somebody from Kickstarter asked me to promote one of their games, so I put it on the Wargamers site on Facebook. And the guy went to the website, and he said that, oh, my God, they only have 10 pages, 10 sources. And he said that he was doing ASL Partisans, and he had 300. And I'm thinking, you know something? I think after you get past source 15, I think it's a little bit too much because it's not a PhD thesis. But there is historical rigor in Advanced Squad Leader.
There is, exactly. And what they try to do with the Advanced Squad Leader is they try to capture the historical character or caricatures of the various armies. For example, a caricature of the Soviet army is that they used mass over the technology of the Germans. That's not quite true. However, that is fairly accurately replicated in the game to certain extents.
So, and the interesting thing about Squad Leader that people there don't know, so when you look at games like Flames of War, like Team Yankee, it's only a few nations. I believe that there's 24 nations in Squad Leader.
I'd have to pull up my rule book and count, but just counting the British counters only, they all look the same, but there are rules for Canadians, Australians, Gurkhas, British, and the list goes on. Now, they're replicated by the same counters, but each scenario will have its own rules for that. There are partisans. There are partisans from France, from the Soviet Union, from Poland. You have the French, the Free French. You have the Americans. You have the early Americans.
The Communist French.
The Communist French. And you have, in fact, I played a scenario. Actually, correction, I'm going to back this one up a bit. There's an historical ASL module that came out that's based on the fighting in Budapest, Hungary in like 44, 45, there are four nations. It's the Soviet Union and Germany. Then there are the Axis allied Hungarians and the Soviet allied Hungarians, all in this one. Covers about 3-4 weeks of the battle.
That sounds like a lot of goulash, my friend.
It's a lot of goulash. Warmed
Hungary,
over.
Yeah, we got the right country.
That's right.
So, and then you bring up too so you have core rules.
Yes.
In the game, which I got to tell you is kind of intimidating because I'm looking for the loose leaf binder that's about as thick as like a flight manual.
It is. And I'll get into the history behind that, but you're right. The rule manual, the first thing that to alleviate anybody thinking of it as, oh my God, it's so big, is think of it as a yeah, I haven't heard that in a while.
Yeah.
But anyway, to think of it as a reference material. So not so much how to play the game, but what to do if these certain situations come up. And what they've tried to do is try to come up with almost every situation and try to reflect what the actual rule is for that.
And that's, I think, what people should take away, because the sticker shock with this game is that big rule book. Mm-hmm. And it even intimidates me, and I love reading rules. Matter of fact, I bought the ASL, the mini rules,
right?
Because I like reading rules. And to play a game, you don't really access all because it's the mechanics. Especially for some of these guys here, they know them by heart.
You're right. And to look in the history, when the Advanced Squad Leader rule book came out in 1986, the premise they had was everybody knows how to play Squad Leader. And this is just to refine those rules. You flash forward 2-3 decades, and now that corporate knowledge of the new players of the old Squad Leader game is gone. That's when the Advanced Squad Leader starter kit came out. And the rules for that are 15 pages or something, maybe.
Right.
And as I put colloquially, it's not 100% accurate, but it contains about 80% of the rules that you use about 80% of the time.
So there is a way for somebody that's listening that really wants to get into this.
Yes.
Is to start with the starter kit, and there's 4 editions now, and you don't have to buy all 4.
No.
You could buy any one of them and play the game in minutes.
And that's the beauty of the starter kit is any one of the 4 starter kits is self-contained. So why 4 starter kits then? The first starter kit I'll call, it's starter kit 1, and it contains rules on the general rules on infantry, and rules on terrain, and that is it.
Right.
So there's no tanks, there's no guns. It's just infantry on infantry. You got machine guns, you got flamethrowers,
crew
and all that
serve
kind
weapons.
of stuff. Yeah, crew serve weapons and stuff, and that's it. And you got the basic rules. But here's the beauty of it: if you go to play full rules ASL, you don't have to forget rules that you learned with the basic starter kit. That is the foundation upon which the entire rule set is based.
And then ASL Starter Kit 2 is tanks.
No, it's guns and ordnance. So what it does, it adds and
it adds
mortars.
nations too.
I think it does.
Yes.
It adds a couple of nations, and so they have They add the various.
We're getting
the peanut gallery.
Peanut
gallery's throwing peanuts at us.
Yeah.
So, but they bring up good points.
But if they're correcting you, it's good.
Yeah, it is. So they're probably going to quote chapter and verse for the rules, and that's the funny thing is when you get.
Do not be scared of playing this game because of that.
Oh no, not at all. In fact, another way to play other than the starter kits is you could, for example, show up at a game day for a club. There's several around, or reach out on Facebook, Game Squad, etc. And you can find one. Or you can show up to a tournament. Tournament sounds like pretty intimidating. You think these guys are in here, but
I'm looking around, and it's almost like a bar. It's like a
bar
in a very by the docks.
It's closing time right now.
It's a lot of guys. I got to be worried. I'm worried about getting my ass kicked.
Don't worry, we're
friendly.
We're the total opposite of that.
We're friendly hooligans.
That's right. But the beauty is when you show up at a tournament, you're going to find somebody who will help you, and they're patient, and they get you through it because they realize that if they help you get into the game, they're sharing what they enjoy. And my own personal experience is exactly that. My first full rules ASL game was at a tournament in Maine. I played 4 games.
What year was that?
That was in 2015. That's
so you've only been playing this game for 4 years.
ASL for 4 years. The starter kit for a few years before that, and then the original squad leader in 1983, I think it was.
Yeah, around the same for me.
Yeah.
So, and let's go through some of the things I think people will find most interesting about this game. Is if I asked you how many scenarios,
Yes.
both from far afield and that are originally put out, and let's first of all mention the game is from Minuteman Publishing.
Yes.
And it's Minuteman
Multi-Man Publishing.
Multi-Man Publishing,
Yes.
and it's multimanpublishing.com.
Yes, multimanpublishing.com.
And tell those guys they've always been great guys for meeting them. Now, how many scenarios do you think this game has? And people are looking at me like, what an asshole question.
But a caveat to that is official scenarios, meaning of from the original publishers of Avalon Hill, and then now they were taken over, or I should say the torch was handed off to Multiman Publishing late 90s. There were probably, just quick guess, probably 2,500 scenarios.
2,500 scenarios.
Which is more than you can play in your lifetime.
And we haven't mentioned this, but the game covers squad combat in World War II.
Squad combat, World War II, and they've expanded to Korea.
Yes.
And they are expanding, as I understand, in some aspects into the Spanish Civil War.
Really?
So you're looking like, say, 36 to 53, that sort of period.
I'll tell you what, when I'll start getting into this game is when DMB and Foo's in it.
I believe there is what they call a third-party product that does cover DMB and Foo. So I'll talk quickly about third-party products.
Right.
Third-party products are these other companies that put out scenarios based on on the squad leader system. And part of this goes back to the actual advanced squad leader rulebook itself. It's called Chapter H, DYO, Design Your Own, and it tells you how to build your own scenario. So some people took this in the 80s and 90s, and they started making, publishing, and putting out their own scenarios. There was a little bit of pushback, I'm going to say a little bit at the first, but then the company quickly realized if somebody wants to play this scenario, they got to buy the official product to play it. It's just a sheet of paper with information.
Yeah, but so there's a group in Tampa, I guess it's very active, and for ASL SK Starter Kit, they came out with some extra scenario, and I picked that up.
Yeah, that's I believe it's Rally Point is the name of their magazine they put out. So the third-party products that are being put out nowadays they have not only the scenarios, but they also have maps that are compatible with the original maps, and they also have counters, so nations, etc., so that people can actually play according to the rules put out by Multiman Publishing, and they can put them out. And now we're talking close to 7,000 or 8,000 scenarios.
So you're looking at 3,000 scenarios.
3,000 official scenarios and probably 5,000 third-party product from like amateurs like me that put out to companies like Bounding Fire Productions that have put out dozens upon dozens upon dozens of scenarios.
And Multiman's cool with this.
Now, I think they're in a love-hate relationship. Now, there are some companies out there that are a little less, I'm not going to mention names, but they're a little less than above board when it comes to doing stuff because they encroach upon the limits of copyright infringement, where others are very clear. This is an ASL product. You must buy it from, and, et cetera, et cetera.
But here's the thing. So these scenario packs, and we're going to get down a rabbit hole here, they're like $10.
Some are 10, some are 20, and some are getting close to 100.
Really?
I'll talk about one. It's from Bounding Fire Productions. It's called Poland in Flames, and it focuses on, the 6-8 weeks of the combat in Poland between the Germans and Poles and the Soviets and the Poles.
Mm-hmm.
They came out with all sorts of counter sheets. They came up with different maps, like dozens of scenarios, all well play tested. And this cost, I don't even know what it cost. I'm going to say $100. It could be more, it could be less, but it wasn't cheap. But it was very well done, high quality.
But there you go. I don't need to buy the game to play that.
If you buy that, you don't have the rules. You don't have all the maps that are needed to play. You don't have what are called the information counters to show counters when they break or when they shoot and stuff like that. You need the official product to play anything.
I'll tell you what, man. I mean, I'm not going to tell Perry and what's the other guy from
Brian?
Brian,
yeah.
Like how to run a business. But, man, it's the bottom line is these games drive more sales.
As an outsider looking in, I would. I mean,
But most of these guys, and I'll get to this.
Yeah.
Most of these guys have everything for the game.
Everybody in this room there are two things you need for this game. You need the rule book, and you need a module that's called Beyond Valor. Beyond Valor has the Soviets and the Germans, and I think the Finns and and the Waffen SS, which are treated as a separate army, if you will, from the Wehrmacht. It has all that stuff. But more importantly, it has not only the base a couple of maps. It has what they call the information counters. The information counters are several sheets of counters, and sometimes I have counters I've never used because I've never done an amphibious assault in the fog, in driving rain at midnight.
It sounds like you have an unfulfilled life.
I know. In fact, if there was a bridge nearby, I'd probably hurl myself off it.
There is.
In shame. I know there is. But in all seriousness, it has all the information counters you need. For example, when a unit fires, you have to denote that. If a unit breaks, you denote that. If there's a target that's been acquired by a gun, these are all game terms that people would know. You need these counters. So, they break, they're doing this, they're doing that. There are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of information counters that you need. And so you need that from Beyond Valor. And in fact, there's somewhere on the web, look it up. It's what they call the dependency chart.
Yes, I've seen the dependency chart.
So you need an eye test when you're done with that. It's an eye test chart. If you have,
and I'll tell you what I hate about that is because I would be very interested to play scenarios that dealt with the British.
Okay.
And I would need to get Beyond Valor.
Yes.
I would need to get For King and Country, which is not in print.
It's not in print.
And if I want to buy a copy off of eBay, I've seen them go for as much as $400.
You're right. Having said that, and to help pump up some sales of multi-man publishing,
they have it on P500.
They have it. Yeah, they have it on. They're trying to pre-sell it. Now, stuff goes out of print quite often. I know it's a criticism from a lot of people out there in the masses are telling them how to run their business and stuff. And I don't know if I'd be able to do any better. But for example, they just released PTO, the Pacific Theater of Operations. I've been playing all this time. I've played like probably 400 scenarios. I've played. I can count on one hand how many were Japanese because the rules are that different that I'm not going to say they're intimidating, but it's just it's just another bridge, and I don't want to get through that. I want to master what I know. But this comes out now; it piques my interest. So what would you do? Me, I would have the full rules Pacific Theater ready to go in about 6 months. When people have started playing it, they got the interest. They want more.
Right.
Here's your drug.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've done that or not. So getting back to the British with For King and Country, getting it on the P500 it's vital. It's a core module.
And for those that don't know, for a lot of games, they let you pre-order, and when it hits 500 copies, and sometimes it's not 500, sometimes it's less, they will run a print of the game, and then you will get that in good time. But there's also a good secondhand market. But these guys know what can't be bought on the open market.
They do. The British are right now. For example, if I can talk about this tournament we're in right now, what I decided to do is to lighten the load of people when they travel to a tournament. You mentioned like 24 some nations. You go to a tournament, you got to bring all the nations just in case you're playing Poles against Slovaks, as an example. So, I said, you know what? Let's get away with that. Last year, it was Soviets versus Germans. So all you needed was the rule book and Beyond Valor. You're good to go.
What was it this year?
This year was Americans versus Germans. So you needed Beyond Valor. You needed the rule book, of course, and Yanks. Yanks came out, a second edition.
What about GI Anvil of Victory?
So GI Anvil of Victory is part of the original Squad Leader game. For those who don't know,
I'm trying to get some cred.
There you go. He's got some street cred.
Street cred.
So the new Yanks, I say the new Yanks, it came out 3 years ago, and it's fantastic. It's full of good scenarios. It's full of maps, and it's got all sorts of stuff. Updated counters. They're still small, but at least they're bigger to read and so forth, and centered properly, etc. Getting over the publishing limitations of 1987. So this year, people show up. They had Americans, they had Germans, they had the maps, and that's all they needed. Because when you travel, sometimes you can't bring all that stuff.
So I remember going to Winter Offensive, and there were guys that had like wardrobes on wheels.
Yes, because they brought the rules, the maps, all the maps.
How many maps does this game have?
Okay, so I'll talk quickly about the maps. There are two types of maps. There's a geo map that is what they call a geomorphic.
Hence the name Geo.
Yes, and it means that you can line them up left to right, right to left, front to back, etc. in any four directions, and they all line up. Except for the desert ones, they line up separately because they're desert.
They're desert.
There are, we're getting into the 80s or 90s of these. There are also a different series of maps that are called historical maps that are based on aerial photographs from the Second World War,
right,
based on certain areas. A very, very popular, probably the most popular area is Stalingrad. There are 3 historical modules from Multiman Publishing on Stalingrad. There's Valor of the Guards, which centers on the early battles in September 1942. And then there's Red Barricades and Red October. These two match up. You can play these massive historical battles. Those are not compatible with the other maps, so you can play one or the other.
Now, they also have these big map boards. That is ASL Deluxe.
Yes. Deluxe are geomorphic, but they are squares. And the idea at the time when it came out was to get miniature players to play 6mm. Because I believe when the original Squad Leader was made, that his sketching was to make a miniature game.
John Hill.
But he decided to scale back and lessen the cost on the player and make it counter chits.
So here's the thing, miniature players that are still listening. This game was designed for miniatures.
Yes.
Initially. So that's the genesis of the game. But, and I could tell you from an outsider, and I think Dave will back me up in this as he pours some more whiskey, that when you look at games, and I hear a lot of miniature gamers saying realism, that I've not really seen too many miniature games that even approach the rigor, both historically and rigor of the principles of tactical combat as much as Squad Leader.
I would agree with that. There are ways to play Advanced Squad Leader using miniature rules. Deluxe ASL, as they came out with it, is just basically ASL with big squares or big hexagons.
But let's say my itch, and I play these games because I want almost a simulation.
Right.
I could get that from ASL. I cannot get that from any miniatures rules. And I'm not bashing miniatures rules.
No, and that's the one thing I want to say was miniature games, man, they're fun.
Yeah.
They are. And they also, I think, what works in the real world works in miniatures. What doesn't work in the real world doesn't work in miniatures. I think it does that, but at the very, very low tactical level. But with Advanced Squad Leader, you can play a small skirmish of a couple platoons bashing against each other to these monster games that has a battalion more plus going in. But the one massive difference I'm going to say between the old Squad Leader and Advanced Squad Leader, isn't the taking all those rules that they had of four rule books and trying to harmonize them into one and doing this and doing that, and also how they organize the chapters. But it's the interaction between the players. So, for example, if I'm playing Advanced Squad Leader and I'm moving my guys against you, you watch my guys, and you conduct what's known as first fire. As I'm moving, you fire at me. Okay, so what does that mean? Maybe you get the stratagems where I'm trying to draw your fire. So like we would do in real life, you're trying to send a couple of feints out this way. Does the guy bite? Does he not bite? Maybe it's not really a feint. Maybe this is the main effort. So that sort of chess game, as you see, going on between the two, that's one aspect I've not seen in any other game, either board game, miniature game, or otherwise, to be honest.
And that, in my opinion, is... this is a game system that is coming up on 42 years. 77.
Since the original game came in 77, so we're looking 42 years.
42 years. So I would say, I think that the rigor is there over the test of time, where this game really, what I'm trying to really appeal to is you guys that are listening, that I like miniatures, but, I like saying something. Miniatures are realistic, and I'm not bashing miniature games because they're awesome. Dave is a miniatures player as well. But if you really want to look to see if your tactics really work, try a game like Squad Leader.
And just to back up onto that, or to amplify that, we mentioned about the cost for the full ASL game. You're laying out a lot of money.
Yeah.
But the beauty is that if you want to try it, around $20, you're getting the ASL starter kit number 1. You're getting 6 scenarios. You're getting everything you need to play. You need nothing outside.
You can also
the box.
download scenarios from them for free.
Yes, there are more scenarios you can add on to it. You can get these scenarios. It's about, 15 pages or whatever it is for the rule book.
Right.
Read through it, and most of those rule pages are examples, graphic examples laid out, and you can go online. There are more. And the resources online, through Facebook, through YouTube, through whatever, there are all sorts of players who put out little tutorials in small snippets. How do I do the rally phase? This is what you do, blah, 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 blah. How do I do this? What does this mean? What does that mean? And the best part is when you get online, you ask this guy a question. Nobody's going to say, shut up, noob. They're They're going to say, this is the way it happens. Here are the rules references. Here are this, here are that. In fact, there's even web pages that are geared for starter kit players.
Mm-hmm.
So you lay out $20, $25 with shipping maybe. You play it and you go, you know what, I really don't like this. I'm going to go back to miniatures. You know what, you're going to sell that online on for almost the full price.
Especially when it goes out
eBay.
of print.
When it goes out of print, wait a while, double your price, you'll sell it on eBay.
Yeah,
Easy peasy.
And that's the thing, too. It's so I'll give you my history. Dave knows my history. I played Squad Leader, and I played the 3 expansions. It was a Crescendo of Doom, Cross of Iron, and GI Anvil of Victory.
Right.
And I played that, and I remember when ASL came out. And at that time, I was not gaming. But when I look back at what ASL became in the mid-'90s, it blew up.
It did. In fact, ASL's gone through now, ups and downs and stuff in its career. But you're fully right. And so the people on the line who are listening who don't really know the whole history of the original Squad Leader, it came out to much fanfare in '77.
Yeah.
Sold hundreds of thousands of copies. People loved it. Featured in the movie the Final Countdown. They're
I thought they were playing Third Reich in there.
No, that was Squad Leader.
The Squad Leader.
So that was so popular they came out with Cross of Iron, which added more stuff for the Russian front, and it fed off the movie Cross of Iron with James Coburn.
Which is an amazing movie.
But here's the thing. In behind, they took some of the rules from the original game and changed them. Rules on artillery, rules on tanks, and they added more stuff. They added snipers, and they added whatever.
Well, the game progressed.
It
matured.
progressed. And then the reference material at the back referred back all the way back to starter kit in that. The Squad Leader in that. And then later came out Crescendo of Doom, which had Allied miners and the Poles. It also had the French and the British. And it had,
had Matilda tanks.
Had Matilda tanks. It had Sharpies. It had all those stuff. It had rules, but it added more rules. It added, we can do bypass movement. We can do this. We can do that. So you're changing the rules. And then finally, GI Anvil of Victory came out, basically shredded all the previous rules, came out with rules that...
Because that was a big box.
It was a massive box. In fact, all the counter set from the original 3 games was replaced in that one set.
Right.
And they came out with certain rules. And one rule, I won't get into the details, it's called experience level rating. It's in ASL, it applies to all nations. But in GI Anvil of Victory, it only applied to the Americans. It's kind of weird.
So one of the things about the game, it represents each counter is roughly a squad.
Yes, star caveat. There are unit counters. You have what they call multi-man counters, hence multi-man publication.
Yeah.
And single-man counters. Single-man counters represent exactly...
There is no single-man publication.
Not yet.
Okay.
Give me time. I'll try to see if I can get around the copyright laws.
That's right.
That. So a single-man counter is one person, either a hero, which has special rules, or a leader, which are key for, advanced squad leader, not advanced squad. So, but the multi-man counters represent anything from a vehicle crew, a gun crew, a full squad of, depending on the nation, 8 to 12 guys, or 15, or what they call a half squad, which is, when the squad is like a half of a squad, where they can break them down.
And it has all the combat factors on it.
Yes. Each counter, as you look at it, it has either 1, 2, or 3 person figures on it.
Mm-hmm.
And those 1, 2, or 3 represents, 1 is for a single man counter, 2 for half or a crew, and 3 for a full squad. And that also represents unit size, which gets into the rules and talks about the hidden subtleties behind everything. In each counter, they'll have, for the multi-man counters, will have their unit classification, either a green squad or a conscript, second line, first line, or an elite squad. And they all have their own characteristics. Getting into single-man counters, they're all elite by rules. And so this is some of the subtlety that goes into it. For multi-man counters, they have their firepower, they have what their normal range is, and they have what that unit's morale level is, its ability to withstand fire. A lot of gamers know what that means.
Yeah.
But hidden on that counter are other rules. For example, if its firepower is underlined, means it has assault fire, which means, da-da-da-da-da-da. If its range has underlined, it means it has spray fire, which means a bunch of, without getting into this.
I'm looking at it now.
Yes.
So, and is that a Z? Nope, it's a 7 with a line underneath, so it gets assault fire.
It gets assault fire.
Now, there's an E on top of 1. Does that mean it's
It's elite.
It's elite. It's
Yes.
Japanese.
It's elite, and elite means things. For example, if you're doing what's called a heat of battle roll, if it's elite, well, it has a better chance of battle hardening or becoming fanatic in that case, and less of a chance of losing control and becoming berserk. Although sometimes berserk is an advantage.
I remember Berserk from old Cross of Iron.
And the best part was when in the old game you
The
used
red.
to replace it with a red counter.
I love that.
They don't have that now. Instead of what they, again, printing costs being what they were in the 80s, and of course, inertia, people don't want to change, is you put another counter over top. It says Berserk and has its new factors.
I would like the red counters back.
Oh, in fact, there are a third-party product out there, and I can't remember the name, honestly, off the top of my head, but they have the red ones for every nation. So if you're Soviet, if you're German, if you're this, you're Waffen SS. If you're Finnish, if you're Swedish, if you're whatever.
So I know there was black Waffen SS counters. Was that third party?
No, Cross of Iron first brought in
That's right.
SS. With that, when Beyond Valor came out, 1985, published, the price of printing being what it was, they decided at that point, instead of printing them white ink on black background to distinct them, they put a small SS runes in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they have different characteristics. The SS have their special, I'm not going to say special, but unique rules as opposed to the Wehrmacht. For, again, the caricature of the SS being what it was. In, what was the year? I'm going to say 99, they came out with a historical ASL product that was based on Arnhem Bridge. And in that, they had the complete order of battle for the entire Waffen SS. And it was in
Not just at Arnhem.
not just at Arnhem. We're talking early war, 1939, fighting into Poland, to 1945, Eastern Front fighting in the suburbs of Berlin. Every tank, every vehicle.
It has like Leon Dragel and the Wallonian Flemish SS.
You can do that. No, it doesn't has the one thing. Here's one thing that leads to MMP and Avalon Hill's credit. If you look at a single man counter, they have names on them. For example, their hero counters are typically real World War II heroes from that nation. I'm pretty sure there's an Audie Murphy for the Americans, for example.
So it would be Lieutenant Murphy.
Well, if it's a hero, it just says Murphy. It
Okay.
has a rank. It has no rank. It's just 149. Some of them have ranks, and that's just more of a
So what Nazis are in the game?
0. So on the Waffen SS single-man counters by Multiman Publishing, there are no names. They're all faceless, and that's how they put them on there, on the black counters. On the normal Wehrmacht counters, you're going to find, for example, in the latest red factories, an 8-1 leader known as Sergeant Garvin, named after a guy who looks remarkably similar to me. I do play testing up there, and one of the things to do to
I know.
tip a hat.
You put it on Facebook.
I put it on Facebook. I think I put it as my profile photo one time, and maybe some dating sites. I don't know. Nobody's come back to me, so it probably.
Could you
didn't work.
imagine? No, do any women play this game? I don't think.
There are, but there are few and far between. I don't think it has that appeal, and I just think it's such a I've seen women playing miniature games.
It's usually fantasy stuff.
Yeah, the
I know I'm
fantasy
going to get
stuff.
beat up for this.
No, but it's not a comment. It's just a what do I look at? What do I see? Why they do it? I don't know. Maybe maybe they're from Venus. I don't know. So while we on Mars are playing Advanced Squad Leader, they on Venus are playing the fantasy games, Magic or what have you.
So let's talk about the fairer sex for one quick second. Many of you guys don't know this, but one of Dave's favorite movies is
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner. And who did you run into upstairs? Because there's a Comic-Con going on here.
Yeah, Comic-Con upstairs. And just as a caveat for that, they had both versions of Wonder Woman, the Linda Carter version and the newer one.
I saw Linda Carter at a Caps game during the playoffs
She
last
lives
year.
near here. She lives in McLean. I
She's a
believe.
huge Caps fan.
Oh, she is.
Yes.
So I saw Rachel, the
From-
replicant.
yeah.
And I checked before I left. I went up and I checked. Said, yes, your eyes are green. So that's a tip of the hat to Blade Runner 2049.
So you're gonna post it? I sent him the pictures.
I've got the
took.
pictures, and I'm going to post them.
You got to
there.
put them on
Oh.
Blade Runner. She was tall.
Yeah, well, she also had like the 12-inch heels or wherever they were. but
Now, would
that's
you have
fine.
said, Rachel, why don't you come down here and play some Squad Leader? What do you think she would have said?
Well,
She probably would have gotten another replicant to kill you.
yeah. I think I would have been retired.
For those who haven't seen, actually, we just killed the movie for anybody who hasn't seen it because you don't know she's a replicant.
Halfway through. I mean, it came out in 81 or 82. 82
Yeah, but some
came
people
out.
haven't seen it. And look, I'll tell you this. Harrison Ford's also a replicant.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Rachel's a replicant.
Yes.
And her eyes are green.
And it kind of ruins the movie for whoever hasn't seen it. And don't see the new one. The new one's not that good.
I'll disagree to that. I love the new one. But
Do you really?
Yeah, I do. But
Because we do movie reviews on No Dice, No Glory as well.
Oh, I get it. It's the cinematography, the music. I think it has a fairly good, faithful follow on. 40 years later, 30 years later. And the one thing I'm going to say that I really liked out of it is they kept the sort of anachronistic adverts.
You mean
Atari's not around.
You mean the product placement was there?
Yeah, product placement, but of products that no longer exist. Pan Am, Atari. Yeah, cool, whatever. So
Eastern Airlines.
Yeah. But they had Johnny Walker.
So how many guys did you have showing up to this?
We had pre-registered around 40, 42. I have to check that. I think it's 42. And a couple guys were unable to show up. They had lame excuses like, "Oh, I'm in surgery." Oh, okay. And somebody died.
Suck it up.
Fine. Anyway, but in all seriousness, we had I'm going to say close to 38 people showing up.
And then here's something that we have to give a shout out to our friends at Slytherin and Matrix Games.
Oh,
they came up huge for Dave.
Massive.
And they gave him a bunch of game codes.
Yes, they did.
For especially World War II games to give away, and we were giving away one a month, and then I believe you were doing one a week.
One a week towards the end.
And then yet enough to give away like one a day.
Yes, and we're giving out for the participants that are here now. They're getting some from Slytherin, Matrix and Slytherin games, and I got there's a link to Squad Leader, but as an anecdote, when I put online that Matrix Games Slytherin is sponsoring this tournament, all I got was from the Squad Leader community was WTF? How did you do that? Because typically it's pretty incestuous in terms of the sponsorship. Like it's all, hey, all us ASL guys are going to sponsor us other ASL guys.
Yeah.
But then we got this outside thing. And there is a link to ASL.
And let's give thanks to Paulo Pagnotti.
Yes. Paolo was fantastic.
Paolo is PR, and his side job is that he writes on No Dice, No Glory. And if you've ever seen his stuff, he's a master painter.
Oh,
and by the time this comes out, his article on the new U.S. D-Day book will be out. And he's a fantastic person, fantastic writer. But we want to give a big shout-out to Slytherin Matrix. It's matrixgames.com, slytheringames.com. And they have a game that is a kind of a Squad Leader-esque game.
Yes. In fact, the origins from Close Combat back in the 90s.
Well, there's another one.
Oh, I know there are.
The Tigers game.
Yeah, yes. And that one is actually more a board game version on a computer. But what they try to do in the 90s is that, the computer game boom in about 94 or something like that. Whoever came up with this thing, and their working title for this game was Beyond Squad Leader. Avalon Hill didn't bite, so they released with whomever they did at the point. They came up with Close Combat, A Bridge Too Far, and Russian Front.
And then let's give them a plug.
It keeps going.
So they're coming out with a updated version where it's not the top-down look.
Yep.
And it is Big Red 1, Close Combat Big Red 1, and it covers the Big Red 1 in Africa, Sicily, and France.
Oh, so you can play like Lee Marvin and all the way through.
That would
just
be
like the movie.
Neat. Was Lee Marvin's character in Squad Leader? Because I know Corporal Steiner is in.
I'm sure he is, but he was a Steiner. And they have
senior sergeant.
They have some like generic names, and like they'll take names of the original play testers, and these guys are like icons in the game. And there's a guy. His name is Jim Stoller. Lives near here in Fairfax City, Falls Church. And he was part of the original Squad Leader development in '76. He still plays Advanced Squad Leader today, and he's like late '60s, early '70s. And his character is what they call a 10-3. And if you don't know the game at all, that means he's like
he's
Superman.
Good.
He's Superman. Like this guy's he's unstoppable, and you're trying to whack him with snipers. You're trying to do anything.
He's
to
a
kill
German
this guy.
counter.
He is a German, but they also have a 9-2 Staller, and they have his name goes throughout.
But there is a Sergeant Garvin.
There is a Sergeant Garvin
for the Russians.
There is, no, he's a German.
Really?
Yeah, even though my name's Irish, I guess he was a turncoat.
I wish.
As long as he's fighting the British, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not me, him. But here's a little anecdote. Way back in the day, there was a game. People were playing the game, and this one guy's playing his counter. Stoller had a morale check he had to pass. It was very thin odds for him to pass, and of course, the actual Jim Stoller is sitting over there. I said, "All right, if I'm going to roll this, I'm going to make him actually." So a crowd formed, and they explained what was happening. And Jim's like, "Okay, I'll roll the 2 dice, and I have to roll. I'm going to say probably a 4 or less to pass on 2d6. Tosses the dice, he passes, and the cheer went up, and then squad leader lore was made at that moment.
Wow.
And this is 30 years ago.
You can't make this shit up.
No, you can't. It's there's the Mitch Reed counter. Mitch, you got to roll the
No,
dice,
people would spit on it.
Here we go, and see what happens.
I don't write myself in any. You know who I put into a lot of the stuff I write for other games? I put Patrick in.
Patrick.
Patrick.
Not Patrick Star from SpongeBob.
No, my son.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So if you read the Polish addendum to Team Yankee, the name of the character in the beginning is Patrick Gorecki.
Oh.
So it's spelled how my son spells. He spells it the Polish way. Not that he does, but we gave it to him.
Yes.
And Gorecki is one of my favorite Polish composers because I am Polish.
There you go.
That kind of explains a lot. But getting back to the game, because Dave and I could talk about a million stuff, and then I have some trick questions for him at the end.
No.
Who do you think would, the miniature wargaming crowd?
Yeah.
Give me, the type of guy that would really love to try this game out.
We're talking a guy who pays attention to detail. We're talking the modeler who makes sure that the decals are appropriate for the date and time of his unit according to his book. Talking to a guy who has an interest in history. For example, maybe he bought, looking at version 3, he bought the Fortress Europe book because he wanted to play the 100 and whatever Wehrmacht division. He researched everything about it to make sure that he got everything right when he painted his models, when he set up his terrain.
So somebody with OCD.
A little bit of OCD. In fact, when I say a little bit, I mean a lot of it. Because there's a side hobby, and the hobby is how do you store your stuff? Anyway.
I know. I wasn't even gonna go there.
Yeah.
What about the guys that? And I'm gonna throw people under the bus here, but not by name.
Of course.
There's a lot of guys that play Flames of War, other miniature games, and said, I think I could have done that. I'm like, really?
Really?
But when you try Squad Leader,
give it a shot.
You really understand whether or not you understand infantry tactics.
Yes, and as a caveat for people listening in here, I am an infantry officer, and I've been serving for over 30 years.
But for the Canadian military.
Well,
so that means it's
the Great Patine Wars, guarding the Maple Syrup Reserve, stuff like that.
Yes.
Serious business. SRS, BS.
It is.
BZ.
We make fun of the Canadian military, but how we knew it was a crappy place on the earth? The PPCLI was there.
I'll second that. I'm in the Royal Canadian Regiment, by the way. So, but in all aspects, or actually in all seriousness, the stuff that you do on Advanced Squad Leader, if it won't work in real life, chances are it won't work there. For example, the sighting of machine guns. If you look at a lot of movies, they sight machine guns to face the enemy as they face them straight on, like they're at the other end of the bowling alley and they're coming at you.
Yeah.
But in real life, you want the machine guns off to the side. The guy at the far end of the bowling alley is coming up the lane towards, I don't know, a bunch of riflemen, but all of a sudden off to the left or right, the machine guns open up. They can, cut them down.
And then
they
you
have
put them on
rules
both
for that.
sides.
And
crossfire.
Crossfire, and they have it's a game term called fire lane, where they set it up. So that's the kind of stuff. Tanks are best used as tanks are used. So they're mobile. They use their firepower, mobility, and protection to gain an advantage over the enemy. So if you're fighting Germans in late 1944-45, where everybody has an anti-tank weapon, you better keep them a healthy distance away, or they're going to set fire.
Yeah.
They'll be set fire everywhere. If you want to run over a bunch of guys, I don't care if they're old men in conscripts, every one of them has an anti-tank weapon, and every one of them can knock your tank out.
Right.
And that's the reality of 1944 war in Europe. 1939 is a different story. You can run over these guys. So you can do that in 1939 in the Squad Leader. As the war progresses, then your tactics have to adapt.
You know what I tell you I think is a beauty of this game? And I maybe it's because of my day job, but I love capabilities real to life. Mm-hmm. And one thing about this game is they replicate the capabilities with the same core rule set and the same basic counters very well for different theaters and different periods of the war. And I think of no other game that can transform, if you look at 1939, how the war was fought, to 1945, there was a technological shift that happened. And this game, without any hiccups, recreates that so very well.
It does. And in fact, if you look at the game, squad leader writ large, in 2 phases. First phase, squad leader to GI Anvil of Victory, where it went through a lot of change.
Right.
Every couple of years it was changing, and you had to re-roll the books. There was a pause. 1985, Advanced Squad Leader comes out.
I think they paused because I was graduating high school.
They did. They were waiting for you to come out because they wanted your money.
Yeah.
They wanted your milk money.
Yeah, they did.
So if you could grab an Advanced Squad Leader rulebook, version 1, and bring it to a tournament today, you can play using that rulebook. There's going to be some typos, and there's going to be a couple of clarifications and there is errata, but not substantive changes, not major substantive changes, I should say. For example, the movement, how far cavalry can go, is increased by 1 or 2. The rules on how a Soviet unit conducts a human wave went from a very small paragraph to a very long, detailed stuff because people were pushing the rules. But you can take that first rule book in 1985, bring it out at a tournament today, and you can play with it.
So the smaller rule book, which I'm looking is over here.
Yes.
I own one of those. I'll tell you what, if you like reading rule books and you want to see the nuances and details of squad level combat and how the tactical edge works, reading that rule book, even though it's just a reference, to me is amazing.
It is. And now the rule book that Mitch is referring to is called the, quote, pocket rule book. You need pretty big pockets. Now, I say big, it's not huge. It's, what is that, about 9 inches by 6?
Yeah, it's like it's an A5 book.
An A5 book, but it has what's called the chapters are in it. There's more chapters in it than the basic rule book that you buy, which is fine. And then you say, well, chapters, what does that mean? Well, Chapter A is infantry and basic game rules. Chapter B is terrain. C is guns and ordnance. D is AFVs and vehicles. Echo is what they call miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is stuff like night rules, extra weather, close air support, stuff like that. F is desert only. G is Pacific terrain.
Look at this guy. Wow.
Yeah. H is design your own, and also actually one of the best.
I think it goes up to O.
It goes up to actually Z or Z for you. Members or subjects of Her Majesty. But they get into very specific. This is O is for Stalingrad, and R is for this. But the core rules, if you look at H, the beauty of H is that it has what they call AFV and ordnance notes. So you look at your tank. Is it a Tiger? Yeah. Is it a late model or early model? Anyway, the game says which one it is. But they have a little blurb, a paragraph. How many were made? Where were they fought? This and that. The character.
I cannot tell you how many times, because I do some play testing and some game development, and I use the rules.
Yeah.
As almost like a biblically to make sure I am incorporating everything correctly, because the rules are that tight where I think from a game developer standard that if it's not in ASL, then it probably never happened.
I would agree to that. And if you look into the vehicles, for example, I'm just going to use the example of the Panzer 38. There's the A model and there's the Echo model. There's a couple models in between. This is the Czech vehicle that they got from the Skoda factory when they invaded Czechoslovakia. And it was like they formed a quarter of the German Panzer Corps in like 39, 41 or something like that.
Yeah. And I run them in the early war.
Yeah, and they're great tanks. The 38A has, the chapter model verse of everything for that, and then, but more importantly, the history. It served in these divisions, in this front, in this area. So the idea is, as you go through it, is, I'm playing the Dickety 5 division. Did it have the 38As or B's? Oh, it says it has the E's. Okay. So in the scenario I'm designing, I cannot have this tank. I can have that tank because This tank did not exist there for whatever reason. It was in a different part of the country or something.
Yeah, the OOBs for these games are abstract. And if you want to fight the Battle of the Bulge, this is not the game for you. But if you want to fight the bridge at St. Vith,
yeah,
this game is totally for you.
Oh, yeah. In fact, there are 2 historical games that are based on small snippets of the Battle of the Bulge. One is called Kampfgruppe Piper 1, and that represents some of the initial German advances. Kampfgruppe Piper 2 represents some of the German counterattacks. Again, like all historically based in a certain area. A more recent one that came out is a battle that's not really well known, and I think it was called Operation Nordwind or something like that, where the Germans attacked after the Battle of the Bulge into France.
Yeah, down towards the Swiss border in Alsace.
Yes, and there's this one's based around a little village called Hatton, and the historical module is called Hatton in Flames, and it represents some of the battles. There's a number of historical modules that have come out, but that Hatton in Flames is actually a pretty good one.
And, I'll tell you what, and, I like being fair. The only thing to me that is not 100% historical to this game, because the standard is so high, are the maps.
Yeah.
And that's because, you look at 5,000 scenarios.
Yeah.
And how many, 50 maps?
80 something
80.
like that.
You can't do it all. And then they have the treat Hexro TT as a river.
Oh yeah. Like there are in every scenario, there are what they call special scenario rules, SSRs.
Yeah.
And some of them, actually, everyone has, it represents what the weather is. Scenario 1, weather is this. It's clear, it's overcast, it's wet, it's cold, it's
What
this,
was
it's
the
that.
one, maybe it was in the original box, where they the Americans were going across the river to gain intelligence?
Oh, Hitdorf on the Rhine.
Hitdorf on the Rhine.
Yes.
And if you look at the map it used, there's no
actual river.
There's no actual river. So yeah.
So they had this big, long, elongated paragraph explaining how they're off board, but there's a river and they're landing and that.
Hitdorf on the Rhine.
Oh, jeez. That's
Is that still in the game?
Yes. In fact, all the original official Squad Leader, Cross of Irons, Crescendo of Doom, and GI Anvil of Victory scenarios that were published.
Hitdorf on the Rhine, Bitch Salient.
The bitch salient, yeah.
Yeah, which is I like saying because I wouldn't get in trouble when I was 11.
Hey, it's beach.
Beach.
Anyway, so beach. Well, there's no accent grave for accent aigu on there, so it's but yes, all those scenarios have been translated. I'm making quotation marks in the air with my fingers. Translated into advanced Squad Leader rules.
There was a St. Lo one.
Yeah, there is. There's from the original Squad Leader, 6 were on the Eastern Front, 6 were Western Front against the Americans. And you mentioned it before about historical battles and stuff and how they're not actually 100% replicated. There is a scenario that a lot of gamers will know, not just Squad Leader gamers, and it's called Hill 621.
Of course.
Hill 621 in the original Squad Leader was...
it wasn't the original.
Yeah, it was. It was like scenario 5 or 6. And it shows hordes and hordes of Soviets trying to gain this ridge line in 1944. And then, this game is great because, combined arms. Both sides are reinforcing, and then you're trying to get it. There was no actual battle of Hill 621.
I know.
This replicates, I'll say it's a caricature of the battles of June, July 44 on the Eastern Front.
Yes.
A typical battle in a typical
Do you know how many
place.
people think it's a real thing?
Oh, I know there's lots of people.
Do you know what would be cool? A gamer brewer that named all of his beers after the original 20 Squad Leader. Squad Leader scenarios.
The best part of that, they'd have 20 recipes of beer.
Yeah, which should be nothing for a master brewer.
And the one thing I'll say about Hill 621 is I've seen it play in Squad Leader. They've translated it, so to speak, into the Advanced Squad Leader, which I think is actually really, really good. It's fantastic. I've played them both. But I've also seen Hill 621 played in miniatures, using miniature rules.
Yeah.
They've taken it and they said, here's...
And it's funny. People think it's a real damn thing.
They think it's a real battle, but, it's a great... I'll say it captures the essence of combat in the Eastern Front in 44. Overwhelming odds. How can the Germans win? they're dribs and drabs putting guys.
I
in
believe when I
high-quality
played that,
troops.
the Germans usually won.
What's that? Sorry.
Because they had a lot of the LMGs and MMGs on the hill.
Yes.
And it was very hard, I think, for the Russians to win unless they got some really good morale rolls from their leaders. They really needed those.
And that's actually one characteristic that the game captures is that the German NCO Corps was probably better than almost any other army, arguably on par with, let's say, the Americans and British sort of Commonwealth-ish.
No, I mean, they were. They were really good.
They were there, but, I mean, if you get them on the Eastern Front, man, you had corporals and privates on the German Wehrmacht that would, match in terms of leadership ability of
Fingerspitzgefühlen.
Pardon me?
Fingerspitzgefühlen.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it was. Like, try to get the finger feel of where things are, and then just find your way through the night, through the bad.
So let's say I take your advice, and I'm out there listening, and I pick up. I could go full bore, but let's say I pick up an ASL starter kit.
Yes.
How long is a game taking me?
Anywhere from an hour to 4 hours. So it is an investment of time. Part of that is how fast you play, how fast you make a decision. At first, it will be longer, but there are some people who play who they sort of have that Fingerspitzengefühl of what they're going to do, and they just sort of, as you're playing your turn, I'm already planning my turns. When it comes to it, I'm already running through it. But if you don't know the rules at first, I want to do this. How do I do this? And then you go through the examples. But there's nothing like personal experience where you sit down with a guy.
So around here, how much time do you allot for a round?
For here, because it's a tournament, it's a little bit less normally, but we don't try to cram them.
Right.
We're looking around 6 hours for a game. That allows for them to determine what game they're going to play. They have to set up. They have to get the maps out and then tear down at the end. So they're probably looking at about 4.5, 5 hours of actual game play.
But this is for a tournament.
It's a tournament.
And the other one, too, is there is a worldwide ranking?
There is, and there was a bit of, it's called Area, A-R-E-A, and it means something, I'm sure it does. But people, when they play and they get like a ranking onto that, it went dormant for a year or two, and somebody else is actually rebuilding it to get it modernized and catch up over the last 2 years. So this game here, when I was organizing the players, I took what was existing, so 2 year snapshot from 2 years ago, because I had nothing else to gain, and I ranked them, and it actually worked out well. We've had, of the top 4 players, 3 made it to the final, the semifinal.
So the guy that wins here today, what's he walking out with?
He is walking out with a diorama that was built by one of our club members from the DC Conscripts, and it's a fantastic little piece of a Panther 5G rolling past a burnt out church. So that's one of the things is people make dioramas for this game. He's also getting some what's called personalized precision dice that are made by a third-party product, specifically for Advanced Squad Leader.
What makes them precision dice?
Just in their manufacture of how they're made. So
they still roll 1 through 6 as randomly as
1
any
through
other
6
dice.
is anything else.
Yeah.
But there are people that will put hand on heart and say they're different. I'm not one of those people. I like them because they have little nations on the, they'll have like an old style Canadian maple leaf or the American, star or something like that. But he's also getting a third-party product, and I'm looking at it to remember. It's from Le Frontier, who's a third-party product in France, and he makes high-end quality scenario packs. The Frontier number 14, or if you're French, 14, it's based on the Italians, and it has some counter sheets, has some maps, and it scenarios, and also articles. Articles is another thing that hasn't been mentioned. ASL articles. There is an entire library of articles, not just how to play, but also how to understand the game, how to understand statistics, how to use the statistics to your rules, understanding what rolling 2d6 means and what is the probabilities.
Yeah.
And the compounding to that in ASL, for those that don't know, you roll 2 dice at a time, one of which is colored. And that colored die has a unique meaning.
Are we allowed to say colored?
It's an inanimate 6-sided object, so it does have a color as opposed to a hue. So, yeah, we can call it colored.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
I don't want to, we're not going to pick up an E rating because Sean's not here.
Oh.
So I don't want to say anything to, I miss him too. I don't want to say anything that's going to get us in trouble. because I don't want a social warrior coming at me.
No, and in fact, the rules do say that one of the dice must be like a white die, and the other one is a color of sorts. It could be red, blue, green, yellow, whatever. But because they must be of different hues, because that different hued color has a different meaning.
Right.
A third meaning, if you will, onto I'm shooting at you, I need a 7. All right, I roll a 1 and a 6. Fair enough. But hey, guess what? I'm firing a machine gun. And the color die was a 1. I got ready to fire. It means I get to shoot again.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of this game for you guys out there. It is a real test of your tactical mettle. And, and Dave also kind of just touched upon it once again. This game, it's the engine. The gasoline of this engine is the desire to know more about history. Mm-hmm. And this game targets historical gamers so damn well. And I think that's what drives a lot of these guys, because for meeting ASL guys, they know their history. Where I play miniature games, the guy across from me may not know.
And to their credit, I would say a lot of them do. That's why, for example, you had the infantry regiment, the 2nd Armored Division fighting in Normandy, and you painted them up with the camouflage uniforms because they did.
Yeah.
So the guy that will do that will like playing Advanced Squad Leader.
Yeah. So
the guy that comes out and just wants to throw dice, maybe not. Maybe not.
Give this game a try, folks. Starter kit, and how long have Dave and I been talking? It's actually an hour and 1 minute now, which is usually where we cut it off. So the other one, last question I'm going to ask Dave. It has nothing to do with. We always ask people out of pocket questions.
Okay.
So Dave and I go to a lot of hockey games together.
Oh yes, we do.
The first round was not happy for either of us.
No.
How do you think the Leafs are going to do next year?
It depends on this off season. Number one, they have to re-sign Mitch Marner.
They have to, and you like Mitch Marner.
I like him a lot. I like him for a lot of reasons. I like him for his play on the ice. I like him for his youthful sort of joie de vivre that he brings, and also his engagement with the fans. There was like this little girl, 10 years old. Mitch would be my Valentine. He went up and he gave her a puck, and then he motioned, "Hey, do you want to do a selfie?" And the girl was in tears when he was done.
Right.
He didn't have to do that.
He did not.
No, but he does that every game. Every game. There was a game where he broke his stick, and then he called for the Bobby Hastings, the equipment manager, "Give me another stick," and he went down and he scored a goal. The first guy he did a high five to was back to the equipment manager.
Yeah.
So,
he's maybe the Caps will re-sign him.
And he gets a lot of shots. He was at one point in the season. I don't know if he finished that way. He was the number one in primary assists in the NHL.
I think he was.
So he's the guy that passes to somebody who scores, as opposed to pass to somebody.
How do you think they're going to do next year, though?
If they sign him, and they get a defenseman, and but these are things, and I think they're all achievable. They will get past the first round, and if they get past the first round next year, watch out for a parade in Toronto. That's what I'm saying.
Even if they have to go through Tampa.
Even if they have to go through Tampa.
Tampa's already this season's not over yet, and Tampa's already the favorites for next year.
Yes, but they were the favorite this year, and
How happy were you that they tanked in the first round?
I was very happy. Although I did pick them to win the cup this year. I picked them.
Yeah. Well, because you're a fan, and I do appreciate that.
I wanted the Leafs to win, but I picked Tampa to win.
And I got to tell you, Dave and I went to the outdoor game last year when they
awesome.
played the Leafs, and it kind of sucks that we're not going to go to a game next year.
It does, because
you're going to have to come down.
It was the Leafs and the Capitals outdoor game. I mean, it was the first hockey game I saw with a flyby.
Who won that game?
The Washington Capitals 5-3.
Yes,
5-2 or 5-3.
5-2. Yeah.
5-3.
Yeah.
It was a great game. There was a power failure at the point of it. The low point of my game was when some guy walked by me and bumped my smartphone in my hand, and it cracked.
I know. I felt horrible, but it didn't affect your having a good time.
Oh, I had a grand time.
Yeah.
I'd do it again. Hands down.
I tell you what, anytime you want to come down and hit a game, it's always an invite. So let's give some shout-outs. First one, Multiman Publishing.
Multimanpublishing.com.
Tell them Dave Garvin sent you. Let's give one to the sponsor, Slithering Matrix. Thank you guys so very much. These guys, I know, appreciated it.
I believe that there is close to $1,000 of software that went out there. And that's just my quick look at what the stuff was and what it was worth multiplied by a couple of beers. But I think it was 4 figures.
Yeah, it was. Thank you guys so much for that. How can I find the DC Conscripts?
There's a number of ways. The best way I would offer is to go to Google, type in DC Conscripts. Another one is to go online to humanwaveconscripts.com. That's all one word. And that's the site for this tournament. On Facebook, of course, everyone's on Facebook. There's DC Conscripts. On Twitter, DC Conscripts. Instagram, DC Conscripts. Any of those social media.
Let's say I live in Pigs Knuckle, Arkansas.
Pigs Knuckle, Arkansas.
How can I find a local ASL group?
Step one, go to Facebook and look up Advanced Squad Leader. On there, query ASL Players Map. You're going to get to a Google map that's been populated or pinned, I think they call it.
How many guys are on that map? A couple thousand?
5,000 maybe,
yeah.
6,000. We're talking Russia, China. Actually, there's a huge ASL community in Hong Kong right now, and it's growing. These are Hong Kongese, I guess, Cantonese, that are down there, led by a guy, Jack. Tanker Jack, we call him. Tanker Jack. And this guy he is an enthusiast, like to the nth degree. But you get on there, and there's a live maintained as soon as somebody says they want on there, they'll update the map. So you zoom where you live and look around, and I guarantee if you live in the United States, there's somebody within 40 miles of you right now that plays this game. That's active.
Awesome. And that's really all you need. Sometimes if you contact one of these guys, like I contacted and I played that time against John Gorskowski.
Yes.
He was more than happy to club me like a seal, but he actually taught me the game. So give this game a shot, folks. I mean, if you're still listening, obviously you're still interested.
And there's another thing. There's an online third-party freeware called VASL. Look that up. It's freeware, so it's worth every penny. But no, it is priceless. It has allowed people. So, for example, when I'm in Canada, I can play a live game against Mitch down here in Virginia, as long as we have some way to talk to each other, either through Discord, Skype, Facebook, whatever. We can talk live. We can play the game live using a Java-based script that has almost every single map. It may not have the map that came out last week, but it'll have a lot of maps, and it just allows you to play virtually from afar. And in the last month, there's probably over 4,000 people that have logged on to play games on there.
And I'll tell you what, I don't want to do that is because I can see your face, and usually you don't have a shirt on.
Well, what I do is I try to put posters up of other people.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
But, when you're blessed with such a hairy chest, it's sort of Austin Power style.
I told him to take off the sweater, and he goes, "What do you mean? I'm naked."
Yes,
so,
exactly.
First of all, man, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
If wherever you are, you're running this again next year, and DNG will be there, and we won't schedule a Great War event the same day, but I do want to. Actually, we're going to sign up, but I want to talk to some of these guys. I want to watch, and then. But Dave, thanks so much for taking some time out.
Oh, thank you for coming by.
Okay, and you guys out there, go play ASL. Check out ASL. If you're listening to this after an hour and 5 minutes, hour and 7 minutes, you would like ASL. And we're going to turn it back to Sean in the studio.
Take care, Sean. Talk to you later.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory. And keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.